I've been thinking about No Way Home all week. The entire film's been very clouded in mystery, but since last year we've known one thing. Tobey and Garfield's villains will be returning, most likely. We saw as much in the trailer when Doc Ock climbed out of the rubble of that New York City expressway and smirked, saying, "Hello, Peter." There were a few scenes that were cut throughout the trailer that showed hints at Electro, Lizard, Green Goblin, and perhaps even Sandman, but they didn't show us any footage of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man or Andrew Garfield's. We actually have no confirmation that either of those actors are returning to this film, although it seems almost certain given the amount of news we've heard about it. I've seen some folks say that this movie, No Way Home, is just a stepping stone to a greater SpiderVerse trilogy, which means that Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man might just show up in the third act, and after only defeating a small portion of the Sinister Six's plan, they'll go on for one or two more films until the Sinister Six is dead or behind bars. But, and this is a big but, if those other two Sony Spider-Men show up in this movie, I have a bit of a concern. I'm pretty worried that Tobey's Spider-Man might die. And this is of course a theory, so it's not a spoiler or a leak or anything. I'm just kind of worried about it. I know we don't have much concrete evidence to go off of, but I thought this would be a little bit fun to explore. If Tobey's Spider-Man is going to appear in No Way Home, again, there's no official confirmation of this, but it seems extremely likely. I mean, if they're bringing back the villains, they got to bring back the main hero. Now, I imagine he'll be the old veteran Spidey of the crew. He'll be the leader. And for that reason, after a few more, it might make sense to kill him off. That's just what happens to old heroes that come back to star in a younger hero's movie. Look at Wolverine in Logan, or Patrick Stewart, or Ian McKellen's characters in Days of Future Past. And since the three Spider-Men are basically redundancies in the MCU, it only makes sense then at the end of the story, when it ends in this film or after a few more, that these Spider-Men either die or return to their original timelines forever. Which leads to my second reason. Tobey's death would be pretty impactful on Tom Holland's younger Spider-Man. We have never seen Uncle Ben in the MCU. Kevin Feige and the folks at Marvel decided that Spidey's origin story, specifically the relationship with his uncle, had been retread way too many times. If they tried to incorporate it into the MCU, it would probably bore fans to death and threaten the entire franchise. That's one of the main reasons Tony Stark was brought in. Besides giving a major box office boost to the Holland Spidey flicks, Stark also served as a stand-in for Uncle Ben. But with Stark gone and his sacrifice as the basis for Far From Home, how will Holland's Spidey learn his lessons? He's yet to hear about great responsibility and great power. And as I've discussed in another video, there's actually a pretty popular fan theory / spoiler that Maguire will say this line when he talks to Holland in the movie. I'm betting that Tobey is going to step up into the role of Uncle Ben in No Way Home, and that means more than offering some advice to Holland's Peter Parker. I think it means that he'll die too. Now obviously I could be really wrong with this theory, and I hope I am, but it's interesting content to talk about. Sony loves to milk the Spider-Man franchise for all of its worth. They've got Venom solo movies, Morbius solo movies, I mean they've even got a Black Cat and Silver Sable film somewhere in the development limbo. Sony is going to try to wring out every ounce of money out of the Spidey characters as they can, and since the MCU killed off or retired half of the original Avengers, one of the most marketable actors based purely on nostalgia is Tobey Maguire. Even though Maguire is notorious for demanding a high price tag and having Tobey Maguire as a co-lead in future Spider-Man movies might take away from Tom Holland's take on Peter Parker, the pros outweigh the cons. Tobey is just as iconic as Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. He's also one of the few superhero actors who was able to make nearly $1 billion in the box office just by himself, without the hype of the MCU helping him out. Why wouldn't Sony keep him alive for a while and try to make new films in the Raimi-verse, or fold Tobey into a mentor / buddy role in the MCU, kind of like they did with Miles Morales and Spidey in the multiverse, or like Winter Soldier's role in the Falcon miniseries? What do you guys think? Let me know. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility.